So, what Jesus is basically challenging us on here is what we apparently have done, at least for 2,000 some odd years, probably since the beginning of time, and that is attempt to preserve our resources by depositing them into a place or spending them in a place where we will get a return. Either we buy something that we're going to get a service or a utility from, an object of use, or even if that use is delight, or we spend it on our friends, knowing that they're gonna spend it back on us. You know, the whole family Christmas conundrum, right? Especially today. What do we get people who just get what they want when they need it? And so we feel compelled to get each other gifts, but really, like, I might as well just give my brother $100 and he gives me $100. I mean, do you guys? Maybe most of you guys don't, because you spend your money on your grandkids, like you do all the Christmas shopping for the grandkids. But maybe there was a time where you stopped getting gifts for your spouse, you and your spouse, because it's like Peter and Paul just high-fiving each other. You know, you're not really being generous. You know, there's some thought involved in the actual object that you get. Okay, maybe that, but literally you could just tell your husband, hey, I saw this nice watch and I thought about you. Like that. That's about all it is, because then he could just go out and get the watch. This is the way that we're generous typically, and as Christians we have to watch out for this, right? That we're tipping the poor, right? The people who really need our help. We just give them money from our excess, like that safe little account that we've set aside that we call a charitable account. Like I have an account set aside in my bank that's just called charity, and that's where I dump all of my tithes and extra monies and things like that. And I just let it fill up until somebody needs something, and then I give it freely because it's not mine, right? That money's not mine, so I don't care where it goes, as long as it's a person who presents themselves and it's a worthy cause, and I'm moved by the Holy Spirit to give them that money. I don't mind. But when it comes to giving them money out of my checking account, that's when it's like, well, I didn't really account for this. That money's mine. I was going to spend it on this. And that's when true generosity kicks in. That's where true Christian charity comes in. Someone needs something, and it doesn't really matter where it comes out of. I can help, and I'm going to do that, right? And so when we give money to people who can't pay us back, we have actually impoverished ourselves. Not just a tip of the hat, not just a tip in the jar, not just hey, you give me a lunch and then I'll give you a lunch, and then, actually we're square and I haven't actually done anything for you and you haven't actually done anything for me. Right? But actually give of ourselves in a way that we will not get anything back, that we will have become less because of the gift. We will be poorer. We will be inferior. We will have less strength, power, influence, wealth because of the gift that we've given. Right? And this is hard. It really is hard. Right? This coming weekend, I think we've got the gospel of the widow's mite. And so I don't want to talk about that because we'll be preaching on that. But this is the sense of the widow's mite, right? The wealthy that we're bringing all of their wealth, they're just tipping the poor. Yeah, they're giving millions of dollars, but that's like Elon Musk giving me $1 million. It doesn't mean anything to him, right? But when I have some poor lady that I've spent some time with consoling her, and she feels so overwhelmed, she gives me $20. It used to be like a $5 thing, which used to be like a $1, and they'd tell you don't spend it in one place, right? That means way more. Like my heart is moved. In fact, I kind of want to give it back. I know it would be wrong to do that, but I kind of want to give it back in those situations. Like, you don't need to give me this. You shouldn't give me this. I don't need this. You should keep it, because of the generosity that's involved in that. Right? It's a meaningful thing, right? So what Jesus is saying here is when you hold this is of course just an example of what he's talking about. When you hold a banquet, invite the poor and the cripple and the lame and the blind. Because all that money that you're going to put into that banquet, and they're going to eat your food and drink your wine and recline on your cushions that you're probably going to have to wash afterwards, that's true generosity. right? We should look at the way that we spend our resources for the poor, not with the same evaluation of economy of smart investment. Okay, that's such an American thing, right? What's my return on my investment? Right? That's not the way we give charitably. The way we give charitably is to say, my community, my friends, the poor in my community need something, and I'm going to give it, and I'm not going to worry about getting it back. That's the kicker. And I'm not going to worry that my lifestyle is going to have to change for a month or for a week or for a year because I've given that money, and it's going to take me a while to recoup it, right? That's not the way that we give as Christians. As Christians, we give because this person needs, and I'm going to rally myself and my own resources or the resources of my friends, and we are going to dump into this thing without any ask of return. That's what a true tithe is, without any ask or expectation of return, for the sake of someone else and not for myself, right? Like when we give to the collection on Sunday at church, that's not really a tithe, because most people who give money in the basket at church, they're expecting a service. They're expecting something back, which is the wrong way to look at that. That's not really what it is. But that's what they're looking at. Well, they're like, well, we want our air conditioning, we want our lights, we want our heat, and so I'm going to give money to this, right? But to truly give into that basket to a degree that I'm a little unstable, but my community is going to be healthier for it. That's the way that we look at that. That's the way we give money. And I'm not, again, this is just an example, right? But it's an example of how we tip the poor, right? Where does the money weekly, monthly, annually that you give, do you just give for a tax credit? Do you just give enough to get the most tax return and then you're done giving for the year? Is that why you give? Like, you've got to be honest with yourself. You've got to be honest with yourself about how and why and from where you give in order to be able to stand before the Lord and say, yes, I was generous. Were you generous or were you shrewd? Were you charitable or were you economic? Jesus doesn't let economic people into heaven. He lets charitable people into heaven. And we have to know where we stand.